The next few days are where the novelty fades, and that's intentional. Because no product earns a place in daily life by being impressive for an hour. It earns that place by becoming boring in the best possible way. I rotate between Meta Ray-Ban and RayNeo X2 across normal routines, errands, walking, short conversations, moments where technology is helpful, and moments where it becomes an interruption if it misbehaves. With Meta Ray-Ban, patterns lock in quickly. The experience is consistent, predictable. You know exactly what it will and won't do. That predictability reduces cognitive load. You don't evaluate every situation, you simply wear them. And that's their biggest strength. The glasses don't change your flow. They follow it. RayNeo X2 takes longer to settle. Not because it's unreliable, but because it asks more questions at the beginning. Do I want information here? Do I want silence? Do I want this now or later? Those questions slowly fade, but only after your brain learns where the boundaries are. This difference reveals something deeper about how humans adapt to new interfaces. Meta Ray-Ban fits around your existing habits. RayNeo X2 reshapes them slightly, carefully, but unmistakably. That shaping shows up in unexpected places. I notice it when walking without a destination. With Meta Ray-Ban, nothing changes. My phone still feels like the central hub. I check it occasionally out of reflex, not necessity. The glasses don't interrupt that pattern. With RayNeo X2, something strange happens. I slow down less. I hesitate less at intersections. I don't pause as often to orient myself. Even when I don't actively use navigation, there's a quiet sense of spatial confidence. It's not about seeing directions, it's about knowing they're available without effort. That availability creates calm. This is where R often gets misunderstood. It's not about flooding your vision with data, it's about reducing uncertainty. And RayNeo X2 leans heavily into that philosophy. The information doesn't dominate. It reassures. Meta Ray-Ban reassures in a different way. It reassures socially. In conversations, Meta Ray-Ban disappears entirely. You're present. Nobody wonders what you're seeing. Nobody adjusts their behavior. The glasses don't change the rhythm of interaction. That matters enormously. Social friction kills wearable tech faster than battery life ever could. RayNeo X2 introduces a softer kind of friction, not from others, but from yourself. You're aware that you could be seeing something. That awareness doesn't ruin conversation, but it changes the internal negotiation. Do I glance? Do I ignore? Do I trust myself to stay present? Over time, that negotiation becomes easier, but it never fully disappears. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Some people don't want that negotiation at all. They want technology that stays invisible until summoned. Meta Ray-Ban nails that. Others want technology that anticipates without interrupting. RayNeo X2 comes closer to that ideal. Neither approach is universally right, but pretending they compete on the same axis misses the point. I test both devices during longer wear hours, not minutes. Comfort matters more here than specs ever will. Meta Ray-Ban continues to fade into the background. Weight distribution remains forgiving. Pressure points don't emerge. You forget they're smart glasses at all, and that forgetting is intentional. RayNeo X2 remains present, but tolerable. Not painful, not fatiguing. Just known. You're aware of the hardware doing work, displays, sensors, cameras. That awareness never becomes stress. But it also never disappears completely. Some users interpret that presence as power. Others interpret it as noise. This is where personal tolerance defines preference more than performance ever could. Battery behavior reinforces this divide. With Meta Ray-Ban, battery is something you remember at the end of the day. With RayNeo X2, it's something you consider during the day. That doesn't make RayNeo X2 worse, it makes it more intentional. You choose when the display earns its energy. That choice subtly discourages mindless use. There's no infinite scroll here. No dopamine loop. When the display activates, it has a reason. When it rests, silence returns. Parents appreciate this. Professionals respect it. Younger users adapt to it faster than expected because the system rewards restraint. Meta Ray-Ban, on the other hand, supports passive engagement beautifully. Audio prompts don't demand eye contact. They coexist with other stimuli. This makes them excellent for multitasking, but also ensures the phone remains central. And that reveals the most important difference yet. Meta Ray-Ban extends your phone. RayNeo X2 reduces your need for it. Neither replaces it. But their direction matters. Camera usage highlights this perfectly. Meta Ray-Ban's camera is reactive. You decide to capture, you capture. It's quick, subtle, socially acceptable. It feels like muscle memory. RayNeo X2's camera is contextual. You're aware of what you're capturing before you do. Visual confirmation changes intent. Shots become more deliberate, less frequent, more purposeful. Neither approach is superior, but they encourage different relationships with memory. Meta Ray-Ban captures life as it happens. RayNeo X2 captures life as you notice it. Those are not the same thing. As days pass, I notice something else: shifting posture. With RayNeo X2, my head stays up more often, eyes forward, phone down. With Meta Ray-Ban, posture remains unchanged. Because interaction remains auditory, that physical shift is subtle, but meaningful. Technology that pulls your eyes upward even gently changes how you occupy space. It makes you more aware of surroundings without demanding attention. This is where AR stops feeling like a feature and starts feeling like infrastructure. But infrastructure only works when it's trusted. Trust isn't built through specs, it's built through repetition. Through moments where the device does exactly enough and then steps back. RayNeo X2 earns trust when navigation doesn't drift, when displays remain stable, when information doesn't linger longer than needed, when silence is respected. Meta Ray-Ban earns trust when it doesn't misfire, when audio stays private, when recording feels intentional, not accidental. Both succeed, but they succeed differently. As I reach the end of this phase of testing, a pattern becomes impossible to ignore. Meta Ray-Ban is the product you wear without thinking about technology. RayNeo X2 is the product you wear to change how you think about information. One preserves habits. The other quietly rewires them, and that's why this comparison refuses to end cleanly. There is no universal winner, because there is no universal definition of better here. The real decision sits deeper than price, deeper than features, deeper than brand trust. It asks a personal question. Do you want technology to adapt to you? Or do you want to adapt just slightly to what technology can now do? Part 1 showed how these glasses feel in the moment. Part 2 reveals how they behave over time. And what comes next, the slow shift from daily use into long-term habit, is where preferences harden, frustration surface, and trust either locks in or quietly dissolves. That's where this comparison stops being theoretical, because eventually, the question isn't which smart glasses are better. It becomes, which ones would I miss if I stopped wearing them? And the answer to that doesn't appear on a spec sheet. It appears one ordinary day, when your hand reaches for your pocket and pauses. The evening crowd answers questions no spec sheet ever could. Traffic thickens, footpaths narrow. Sound layers stack on top of each other, engines, voices, music bleeding from storefronts. This is where wearable tech usually reveals its flaws, because busy environments strip away forgiveness. Anything unnecessary becomes noise. Anything mistimed becomes irritating. I start with Meta Ray-Ban again, almost unconsciously. The glasses stay neutral. Audio cues still come through cleanly, even as the city gets louder. Because they're open ear, nothing feels blocked. I'm present. I hear the street, the people, the rhythm of movement around me. When a notification arrives, it's brief, informational, easy to ignore if I want to. And that's the pattern. Meta Ray-Ban never escalates. It never insists. It stays in the background like a well-mannered assistant who knows better than to interrupt. That matters more in crowds than anywhere else. I don't think about privacy. I don't think about how I look. I don't think about what others might assume. The glasses feel like glasses. That simplicity scales. It works whether the environment is calm or chaotic. And I understand more clearly now why this design philosophy resonates so strongly with mainstream users. You don't need to negotiate with it. You don't need to explain it. You don't need to manage it. Then I switch to RayNeo X2. The display activates quietly, but the environment pushes back harder now. Bright signage competes for attention. Movement is unpredictable. People stop suddenly, change direction, hesitate. This is where AR has historically struggled. Too much motion, too much information, too many variables. But RayNeo X2 doesn't flood my vision. Instead, it becomes more selective. Navigation cues appear only when needed. Text stays minimal. Visuals anchor themselves relative to the environment instead of drifting. And again, the surprise is not how much it shows, but how much it withholds. The glasses don't panic when the world gets busy. I realize something important here. Good AR doesn't try to dominate complexity, it cooperates with it. And RayNeo X2 seems designed with that in mind. It doesn't assume attention is available, it waits for it. Still, the social layer remains different. In a dense crowd, Meta Ray-Ban blends. RayNeo X2 stands out just enough to invite interpretation. Not alarm but curiosity, awareness. That awareness doesn't feel dangerous, but it does feel present. I'm more conscious of where I look, how long I glance at overlays, when I speak commands. This is the trade-off AR glasses rarely acknowledge. Visibility creates responsibility. As the evening stretches on, fatigue becomes the next test. Wearables don't fail dramatically when users are tired. They fail quietly. You stop engaging. You stop noticing. You leave them behind. Meta Ray-Ban thrives here. Fatigue doesn't change the experience. Audio still works. Voice still works. And because nothing visual is demanded, your brain never has to switch modes. The glasses don't ask you to participate, they're content to assist passively. RayNeo X2 responds differently to fatigue. Visuals remain clear, but I become more selective. I engage less often. And interestingly, that doesn't break the experience. It scales down naturally. When I don't look for information, it doesn't force itself into view. The system respects withdrawal. That restraint saves it. This is where earlier AR systems failed. They confused availability with obligation. RayNeo X2 treats availability as optional. That may sound minor, but it's the difference between novelty and longevity. Later, something unexpected happens. I take both glasses off and set them on the table. Not because I need a break, just because the day has ended. And in that moment, the difference between them crystallizes. Meta Ray-Ban feels like something I use today. RayNeo X2 feels like something that shaped how I moved through today. That distinction is subtle but profound. The next morning comes quietly. No testing mindset, no checklist, just routine. And this is the moment where most wearables lose. I reach for keys, phone, wallet, and I hesitate. Not because I need either pair, but because I've learned something about myself over the past 2 days. If I'm heading into a socially dense, unpredictable day, Meta Ray-Ban feels like safety, familiarity, zero friction. If I'm heading into a day where navigation, context, or awareness matters, even just a little, RayNeo X2 starts to feel useful in a way that's hard to explain. Not exciting, useful. That's a dangerous word in tech because it's not flashy, but usefulness is what survives. As hours pass, this pattern repeats. I don't want RayNeo X2 all the time. I trust it at specific times, and trust is earned slowly. It doesn't come from specs, it comes from consistency. Meta Ray-Ban earns trust by never surprising me. RayNeo X2 earns trust by showing up exactly when needed. Those are two very different philosophies. One is invisible by design, the other is visible by intent. As days stack, habits form. With Meta Ray-Ban, I build a habit of light augmentation. With RayNeo X2, I build a habit of reduced phone dependence. My head stays up more. My attention fragments less. I don't feel more productive, but I feel more oriented. That orientation changes how the world feels. And that's where the final realization lands. This comparison isn't about choosing the better smart glasses. It's about choosing how much you want technology to participate in your perception. Meta Ray-Ban stays politely outside your vision. RayNeo X2 steps gently inside it. One protects the way you already live. The other invites a shift. Neither is wrong. Neither is future-proof. Both succeed because they respect limits. And that's the quiet truth about smart glasses in 2026. They don't fail because they can't do enough. They fail because they ask for too much. The ones that survive understand something simple and rare. Your attention is not a resource to harvest. It's a space to be respected. And whichever pair respects your version of that space is the one you'll keep wearing long after the comparison ends. By the third day, the test stops feeling like a test in another way too. I stop keeping track of which features I've covered. I stop thinking about balance and fairness. I stop reminding myself to switch back and forth on schedule. The Glasses become objects again, not projects. And this is where reality finally gets honest. The morning routine doesn't change much on the surface. Coffee, messages, a quick scan of the day ahead. But internally, something shifts. With Meta Ray-Ban on, my phone remains the anchor. Even when notifications arrive through audio, my attention still loops back to the screen. Not urgently. Not compulsively. Just familiarly. It's the gravity of a habit reinforced over a decade. The glasses don't fight that gravity. They orbit around it. That design choice starts to feel deliberate rather than limited. Meta Ray-Ban never tries to be the center of attention. It assumes the phone keeps that role, and it positions itself as a quieter companion, hands-free capture, subtle audio, quick access without disruption. And for a lot of people, that's not just acceptable, it's ideal. There's no friction to overcome, no learning curve to internalize. You don't need to rethink how you live. You just get a little help along the way. Then I put on RayNeo X2 again. And this time, the difference is no longer surprising, it's familiar. I notice how my head stays up longer. How my eyes don't drift downward between moments. How transitions feel smoother, less interrupted. Not dramatically, not constantly. Just enough to matter. The glasses don't demand this change. They allow it. An allowance is more powerful than enforcement. On the street, guidance appears later than I expect and earlier than I need. It's restrained, patient. The system behaves as if it trusts my judgment until proven otherwise. That trust alters my behavior subtly. I don't second-guess. I don't overcheck. I move with more certainty even when I'm tired. This is where RayNeo X2 reveals its deeper intention. It's not trying to overwhelm your senses. It's trying to offload small cognitive burdens you didn't realize you were carrying. Micro decisions, micro uncertainty, the constant, am I right? Loop that runs quietly in the background of modern life. Meta Ray-Ban doesn't address that loop visually, and again, that's intentional. It doesn't claim authority over your perception. It leaves interpretation to you. RayNeo X2 steps closer to that boundary, but it never crosses it aggressively. It offers context without command. By mid-morning, I stop thinking about displays and speakers entirely. Instead, I start noticing timing. When information appears, when it doesn't, and more importantly, when it disappears. Disappearance turns out to be the most important feature neither company advertises loudly. In early AR, information lingered too long. Overlays overstayed their welcome. RayNeo X2 shows restraint. Once guidance has done its job, it leaves. There's no residue, no digital clutter hanging in the periphery. That matters when attention is already fragmented everywhere else. Social interactions sharpen the contrast even further. Meta Ray-Ban remains socially neutral. Conversations feel unchanged. People don't hesitate. Nobody glances at the lenses. There's no performance involved in wearing them. This is where Meta's approach pays off in everyday settings, meetings. Casual chats, moments where you don't want technology to be part of the narrative. RayNeo X2 carries a different social weight. Not heavy, just present. In conversations, I'm more conscious of eye contact, of where I'm looking, of whether someone might assume I'm reading or recording. That awareness doesn't ruin the interaction, but it layers responsibility on top of it. And yet, something interesting happens with longer conversations, especially cross-language ones. When translation appears directly in my field of view, aligned with expressions and tone, the cognitive load drops sharply. I'm not switching contexts. I'm not breaking eye contact to glance at a phone. The conversation flows more naturally than expected. Imperfectly, yes, but more human. That's the paradox of RayNeo X2. It's more visible as technology. Yet it sometimes fades more effectively within the interaction. Fatigue returns in the afternoon, and with it, honesty. RayNeo X2 reminds me it's hardware. Pressure accumulates. The bridge of the nose asks for relief. This isn't a device you forget on bad days. You manage it. You adapt. You decide when to take breaks. And that requirement filters users naturally. Some will see this as a flaw. Others will see it as a reasonable exchange. Meta Ray-Ban, meanwhile, stays forgettable. Comfort is consistent. Hours pass without adjustment. There's freedom in that invisibility. You don't manage the device. It manages itself. But here's the moment that changes everything. I leave the house in the early evening without thinking, and halfway down the block, I realize I've chosen one pair without consciously deciding. That realization stops me for a second. Because up until now, I've framed this comparison as an evaluation, a balancing act. But this wasn't evaluation. It was instinct. I didn't choose based on features. I didn't choose based on mood. I didn't choose based on fairness. I chose based on what I expected the next few hours to demand of me. And that's the moment most buying guides never reach. Over the next day, the pattern repeats. For short outings, social-heavy environments, low-stakes routines, Meta Ray-Ban feels right. Invisible, effortless, familiar. For navigation-heavy days, unfamiliar locations, conversations where context matters, RayNeo X2 quietly earns its place. Not by being flashy, but by being dependable. Neither becomes the always device, and that's the real truth. There is no universal winner here because the philosophies are fundamentally different. Meta Ray-Ban believes smart glasses should respect existing habits. RayNeo X2 believes smart glasses can gently evolve them. One preserves, one reshapes. The longer I live with both, the less interested I become in declaring a verdict, and the more interested I become in understanding fit. Because the device you keep using isn't the one that excites you most on day 1. It's the one that aligns with your tolerance for change on day 30. And that's the quiet ending this comparison arrives at. Not triumph. Not disappointment. Not disruption. Alignment. If you want technology to disappear into your life, Meta Ray-Ban understands you. If you want technology to quietly reorganize how you perceive the world, RayNeo X2 speaks your language. And the final test, the one no reviewer can simulate, is this. Which pair do you forget to take off? Which pair do you miss when it's gone? Which pair fits not your best days, but your tired, distracted, ordinary ones? By the end of the 3rd day, those answers aren't loud. They don't feel exciting. They don't even feel final. They feel obvious. And in wearable tech, that's the only signal that matters. By this point, the comparison stops feeling technical and starts feeling personal. The question quietly shifts from which one has better features to something much harder to measure. Which one fits into my life without asking for permission? I notice it in moments so small they barely register at first. Standing in line while someone fumbles with cash. Walking through streets I don't fully recognize yet. Sitting alone with nothing urgent to do. These are the moments where wearable tech usually becomes awkward, where it either feels unnecessary or gets in the way. And that's exactly where the personalities of these two glasses fully reveal themselves. Meta Ray-Ban feels invisible. In these moments, not just physically, but mentally. It's there when I want music. It's there when a call comes in. It's there when I want to capture a moment without pulling out a phone. And then it steps back. It never pushes forward. It never changes the rhythm of what I'm already doing. It fits into my habits without challenging them, and that familiarity is powerful. For many people, it's comforting. For some, it's essential. RayNeo X2 creates a different kind of presence. Not loud, not flashy, but intentional. Information doesn't arrive constantly, it arrives correctly. Directions appear when doubt would slow me down. Translation surfaces when hesitation would interrupt a conversation. Context slips into view quietly, then disappears before it can overstay its welcome. I'm not looking at the glasses anymore, I'm looking through them. And over time I realize my phone stays in my pocket longer, my posture changes. My awareness widens. The difference isn't dramatic, but it compounds. That's when the truth becomes unavoidable. These two devices aren't really competing for the same user in the same moment. Meta Ray-Ban is built for today's habits, today's comfort, today's social expectations. It understands the present perfectly. It respects boundaries. It prioritizes subtlety and normalcy. You never feel like you're stepping outside accepted behavior when you wear it. It blends in, and that blending is its superpower. RayNeo X2 is built for something slightly ahead of us. Not a distant future, but a near one. A future where we're comfortable with information living closer to our senses. Where we trust devices to know when to speak and when to stay silent. Where looking up becomes more natural than looking down. RayNeo X2 doesn't force that future on you, but it invites you into it, and invitations matter more than instructions. There are days when I don't want to think about technology at all. When my energy is low, my patience is thin, and my attention is already stretched. On those days, Meta Ray-Ban wins without effort. I don't need to consider context or battery strategy or social perception. I just put it on and forget it exists. And that's not a small thing, that's a design victory. Then there are days when I want technology to help me move through the world with more confidence, more clarity, less friction, fewer interruptions. On those days, RayNeo X2 quietly earns its place. Not by doing more, but by making me pause less. Not by overwhelming me, but by supporting me at just the right moments. And slowly, something interesting happens. I stop thinking of RayNeo X2 as advanced or futuristic. I start thinking of it as considerate of timing, considerate of attention, considerate of how humans actually move through real environments. This doesn't make it better for everyone. And that's the part many reviews avoid saying clearly. Some people don't want technology this close. Some prefer clear separation between digital and physical. Some enjoy the ritual of pulling out a phone, checking, deciding, acting. Some don't want anticipation, they want confirmation. For those people, Meta Ray-Ban isn't a compromise. It's the right answer. But for people who are starting to feel the weight of constant phone use, for people who want information without disengagement, for people who value flow more than familiarity, RayNeo X2 introduces a different relationship with technology. One where assistance feels less like interruption and more like alignment, and that alignment shows up in unexpected ways. I move through crowds more confidently. I hesitate less at intersections. I engage more comfortably in conversations where language used to slow me down. None of this feels dramatic in the moment. But when you step back, the pattern is impossible to ignore. This is where trust really forms, not because a device promises intelligence, not because it advertises innovation, but because it behaves well when you're not paying attention. The glasses I trust are the ones that don't punish distraction, the ones that don't demand constant interaction, the ones that don't remind me they exist unless it actually matters. Meta Ray-Ban earns trust by staying out of the way. RayNeo X2 earns trust by showing up at the right time. Different paths, same destination. And this is why asking which one is better misses the point entirely. The better question is, which one matches how you want to live right now? If you want smart glasses that feel like normal glasses with a few helpful tricks, Meta Ray-Ban understands you completely. If you want smart glasses that gently reshape how you move, notice, and decide, RayNeo X2 speaks your language. One is about fitting into the present. The other is about preparing for what comes next. Neither choice is bold. Neither choice is wrong. And neither choice can be made by reading a spec sheet. It can only be made after imagining an ordinary day. Not your best day, not a travel day, not a day you plan content or test features, an average day, a tired day, a forgettable day. Which glasses would you reach for without thinking? That's the answer that matters. Because trust isn't built in the moments we notice technology. It's built in the moments we don't. And once you understand that, the comparison stops being a debate and starts being a mirror. Not showing you the devices, but showing you yourself.